Once upon a time, in the quiet German city of UMA, a baby boy was born on March 14, 1879. His parents named him Albert Einstein. Now, if you looked at little Albert, you wouldn't have guessed he'd one day become the most famous scientist in the world. In fact, his parents were quite worried. While other toddlers were chattering away, Albert was silent. He didn't speak his first words until he was almost 4 years old. Imagine the whispers from neighbors and relatives. Maybe he's not very bright. Little did they know, this quiet boy's mind was a universe of its own, waiting to be discovered. History was about to be proven spectacularly wrong. As a child, Albert was different. He wasn't like the other kids who played games and ran around. He was a thinker, a dreamer. There's a wonderful story about him that truly captures the beginning of his journey. One day, his father showed him a simple magnetic compass. For a 5-year-old, this was pure magic. No matter which way he turned it, the needle stubbornly pointed north. Nothing was touching it, yet it moved. Young Albert was mesmerized. He would later say this was a pivotal moment. He realized there had to be unseen forces at work in the universe, mysterious powers shaping everything around us. That tiny compass didn't just point north, it pointed him toward a lifetime of curiosity and wonder. It planted a seed that would grow into one of the greatest scientific minds in history. So, how did this curious boy do in school? You might think he was a star student, but that's not quite right. Albert found school boring and restrictive. The strict rules and rote memorization didn't interest him. He preferred to learn on his own terms, asking the big, deep questions that his teachers often couldn't answer. Questions like, what is time? Why does light travel so fast? How does the vast universe actually work? Because he daydreamed and didn't always follow the rules, some teachers thought he was lazy. One even famously told him, "Einstein, you will never amount to anything." Can you imagine hearing that? But Albert's spirit wasn't so easily crushed. He knew his own mind. His path wasn't a straight line to success. When Albert was 16, he tried to get into a prestigious Swiss university, the Zurich Polytechnic. He took the entrance exam, and he failed. Yes, the great Einstein failed his first college entrance exam. But failure isn't the end of the story. It's often just a part of it. He didn't give up. He went to a different school for a year, buckled down, studied hard, and when he took the exam a second time, he passed. He went on to graduate with a degree in mathematics and physics, ready to share his passion for the universe with the world as a teacher. Or so he thought. After graduating, life threw another curveball at Albert. Despite his brilliant mind, he couldn't find a teaching job anywhere. He sent out application after application, but no one would hire him. He was a young man with a family to support, and he needed work. So he took a job that seemed worlds away from his dreams, a clerk in the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. For many, this would have been a soul-crushing defeat, a sign that their ambitions were just fantasies. But for Einstein, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. The job of reviewing patent applications was relatively simple and didn't require all of his mental energy. It left him with something precious: time. Time to think. And think he did. In the quiet hours at the patent office, his mind soared. He conducted what he called thought experiments. He would imagine fantastic scenarios and follow them to their logical conclusions. What would it be like to ride on a beam of light? If you could travel at the speed of light, would time itself slow down? These weren't just daydreams. They were the very foundation of his revolutionary work. He used his incredible imagination to explore the deepest mysteries of the cosmos, all while sitting at a simple desk reviewing inventions for a living. This period shows us that your environment doesn't define your potential. Greatness can blossom in the most unexpected places. Then came the year 1905. Historians now call it Einstein's annus mirabilis, his miracle year. At just 26 years old, while still working his humble job as a patent clerk, this unknown young man published 4 groundbreaking scientific papers in a single year. Each one was revolutionary, but one in particular would change the world forever. It introduced his special theory of relativity. This theory contained an equation that has become the most famous in all of science: E equals mc. This simply-looking formula revealed a profound truth about the universe: that energy and mass are 2 sides of the same coin. They can be converted into one another. At first, the scientific community was skeptical. Who was this young clerk to challenge centuries of established physics? But slowly, experiment by experiment, the world began to realize that Einstein hadn't just made a discovery. He had redrawn the very map of reality. As Einstein's fame grew, he remained a remarkably humble and funny person. There's a charming story about him from when he lived in Princeton. People would often stop this famous but unassuming man on the street to ask for directions, having no idea they were talking to the one and only Albert Einstein. Instead of grandly announcing who he was, he would sometimes reply with a twinkle in his eye, "I'm sorry, I'm a stranger here myself." It was this combination of superhuman intellect and down-to-earth humanity that made people adore him. His wild, unkempt hair and gentle eyes became as famous as his theories. He showed the world that a genius could also be kind, approachable, and full of good humor. The 1920s and 30s saw Einstein traveling the globe, a scientific superstar giving lectures to packed halls and meeting with world leaders. But dark clouds were gathering over his homeland, Germany. He was forced to flee, eventually finding refuge in the United States. He took up a position at the Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton University, where he would spend the rest of his life. This painful chapter reminds us that even the greatest minds are not immune to the turmoil of the world. But Einstein used his new platform not just for science, but for advocacy, speaking out for peace and human rights. During the Second World War, Einstein faced one of the most difficult moral dilemmas of his life. Fearing that Nazi Germany might be developing a powerful new weapon. He signed a letter to U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt. This letter warned of the possibility of an atomic bomb and urged the United States to begin its own research. This helped initiate the Manhattan Project. However, after the devastating use of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Einstein was filled with profound regret. He famously said, "I have always condemned the use of the atomic bomb against Japan." For the rest of his life, he was a passionate advocate for peace and nuclear disarmament, using his immense fame to warn humanity about the dangers we had created. He was a man of peace, forced to confront the destructive potential of his own discoveries. Even in his old age, Einstein never lost that childlike curiosity that had sparked his journey so many years ago. His office at Princeton was famously cluttered, a genius mess of papers and books. He had a special connection with children who were drawn to his playful nature. He would listen to their questions with the same seriousness he would give a fellow physicist, because he believed that questioning was the heart of learning. He once said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge. For knowledge is limited to all we now know and understand, while imagination embraces the entire world, and all there ever will be to know and understand." He encouraged everyone to keep asking why, to never stop exploring the world with fresh eyes. On April 18, 1955, Albert Einstein passed away at the age of 76. But his legacy is immortal. The image of the man with the wild, white hair, kind smile, and brilliant mind is etched into our collective consciousness. His name is no longer just the name of a scientist. It has become a synonym for genius. But his story is so much more than that. It's a story of a boy who was underestimated, a student who was misunderstood, and a thinker who dared to imagine the impossible. It's a story of perseverance, humility, and the incredible power of a curious mind. Albert Einstein showed us that the universe is far more mysterious and wonderful than we can imagine, and that the quest to understand it is one of humanity's greatest adventures. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the incredible life of Albert Einstein. If you found his story as inspiring as I do, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more stories about the people who changed our world. See you next time.